What does the FNAF fan game Final Nights 2 hide from the player off camera? Final Nights 2 is the second installment of this chaotic series, and although the first game didn't have a whole lot for us to look at, this one definitely makes up for it. There are 6 total nights, tons of cutscenes, and multiple endings for us to check out. In this video, we'll be taking a look behind the scenes in search of things we're not typically supposed to see. Like, did you know that Reaper Spring Bonnie can be found within the True Endings map before the credits roll? There's so much more than that too, so I hope you enjoy this dive into Final Nights 2. So let's do a quick recap of everything that takes place in the game so everyone remembers it. So this game functions similarly to the other FNAF games. All 6 nights take place within this office area, where you have 6 cameras in front of you showing the various rooms within this house. You also have 2 cameras on your right that overlook these vents. You must use the cameras to keep an eye on the burnt animatronics as they attempt to reach your office. Freddy and Bonnie will try to attack you through the vents, so you must close the correct door to avoid getting jump scared. Foxy and Chica, however, will use the hallway behind you instead, so you either need to flash them with your light or close the door on them depending on which animatronic is present. In the cupboard behind the player, we must also periodically check the brother and flash him with our light whenever he moves. On night 5, these adversaries will be replaced with the Shadow Animatronics and Glitched Balloon Boy, who will enter our office using similar methods. Throughout the game, there's also a handful of cutscenes, many of which require the player to make a decision of some kind. And, based on your choices, you will ultimately reach different endings. Now that the recap is done, let's take a look at that title screen. With the lights on, we can clearly see each of these animatronics. Freddy, Foxy, Chica, and Bonnie are all lined up in a row next to the logo, and as we fly around this mansion in the background, we'll see that it is a fully modeled building. You can't typically see inside this building because of how dark the game is, but flying inside, we'll find that it is completely empty. It is, however, fully textured, which I found pretty cool. Now, this isn't the only title screen we have to look at, because this screen actually changes upon reaching night 5. As you can see, the animatronics on screen have now changed. Shadow Fredbear, Shadow Spring Bonnie, and Glitch Balloon Boy have now taken the spots of the original cast. The map is mostly the same though, except now there's rain and lightning as well. Also, just beneath these animatronics are 2 floating eyeballs. I'm not sure why they're down here, but they are. But that's it for the title screen, so let's jump into the first night. So before the first night begins, there are actually 2 cutscenes that take place. In the first, we're watching from the perspective of a fireman as he searches through the burnt rubble of Fredbear and friends. He slowly makes his way towards another fireman in the distance and stumbles across burnt Freddy. As the camera turns away, Freddy turns to look at the camera and then shortly after jump scares you. Viewing this cutscene from a different perspective definitely makes this a lot less scary though. All of this actually takes place on this large grassy plain, with a small patch of rubble in the center where the cutscene plays out. Taking a look at the character whose perspective we view this from, we can see that they are an empty helmet floating just barely above the ground. The person we see in the distance, however, is an actual fully modeled fireman. Taking a closer look at said fireman, we'll actually find that his hand has been cut off and is floating in front of his waist. Now, I'm not sure why this texture/material is set to this, but we can also find the word shutdown written on his model in several places. Off to the side, we can also find the text that is shown before and after this cutscene. They're just floating side by side near the edge of the map. Before moving on to the next cutscene though, let's take a look at that burnt Freddy jump scare. So as we approach Freddy in the rubble, the moment we look away, we can see him quickly turn to face the player. And when the camera turns back to face him, he lunges at the camera as it falls to the ground. Next, I want to take a look at the suit selection area. So the small storage room is used several times throughout this game, but presently it is only a small room containing 2 animatronic suits. However, taking a look out of bounds, we'll find both another Spring Bonnie suit and a floating Fredbear head just beyond that back wall. When the game is unpaused, both of these out-of-bounds objects move side to side just outside this map. The reason for this is because both of these objects are actually tied directly to the player's camera during this cutscene. Upon selecting one of these suits, the 3D text inside the room is warped out of bounds, and the selected suit will then be teleported inside, on top of the player's camera. Also, depending on which option the player chooses, the corresponding model from within this room will be teleported underneath the map out of the player's view. But that's it for this cutscene, so let's take a look at the map where most of the game takes place. So the first thing I wanted to do was get a wide shot of this entire map. And what is pretty neat is that each of the rooms that we see on the cameras are actually physical rooms within this map. They're fully textured inside, with all the objects and furniture we typically see through the cameras. It's really cool seeing these rooms up close though, as we only ever see them on these small screens in our office. We'll also find the animatronics that are inside these rooms, and we can actually watch them as they move around on their set paths to reach the player. The cameras in our office usually display these animatronics in static poses, but moving the camera back here, we can watch them moving throughout the house with their intended animations. Speaking of animatronics, if we head back into our office and take a look inside the cupboard, we'll find the brother. He just kind of sits here, waiting for his turn to attack the player. Right beside him though, we'll also find this dog thing. I'm not exactly sure what this is, but it's present in practically every room within this house, and it's kind of unsettling actually. Also, on the right side of our office, we can see an alarm clock on top of this desk. And if we go just beyond that wall, we'll actually find each of the faces for this clock just stacked on top of each other. There are hours 1 through 6 out here, and each of these will be warped inside the office and overlaid on top of the alarm clock as the night progresses, which I thought was pretty cool. So as for other stuff out of bounds, we can find burnt Fredbear's head floating just outside of our office as well. He's just kind of hovering in this corner, and just beneath his head, we can find his detached body. What I find odd is that the map we're currently viewing is Night 1, and Burnt Fredbear isn't actually used until Night 5, so I'm not sure exactly why he's out here. Perhaps there's a chance he can appear in the office, similar to Golden Freddy from the original Five Nights at Freddy's? That is only speculation though, as he did not appear during my playthrough of this map. The other thought being that the developers copy and pasted maps to have a template to go off of for each night, thus duplicating all the contained objects, as each night and opening are technically whole new maps. If we jump ahead to Night 4, all the original cast will be present somewhere on this map, including Bonnie, who is almost too tall to even fit in the house. Luckily, he has no head, so he just barely fits. We can also take a look at Chica up close, and man, she is creepy. She's missing both her hands and her left leg, and the overall burnt textures just make these animatronics look incredibly menacing. Next, I want to see what happens when an animatronic actually reaches the office. So we can see Foxy as he's standing in the hallway, and we're typically supposed to close the door in order to make him leave. If we just wait, however, we can watch him teleport closer and closer to the player. If the door is left open, Foxy will then teleport into the office beside our chair, and the jump scare animation plays out. It's really neat watching this jump scare from a different perspective. So before we head into Night 5, let's take a look at what the animatronics look like when they're crawling through the vents. At first I didn't realize it, but this strange looking set of intersecting geometry is actually the ventilation system. Similar to the rest of the house, the vents are not actually connected to the office physically, and we can watch as Bonnie slowly inches their way through the vent, and the second they reach the end, they're warped into the office where they then jump scare the player. So moving on to Night 5, things are a bit different from the previous nights. The main cast of animatronics are no longer present. Instead, we have to deal with Shadow Spring Bonnie, Shadow Fredbear, and Glitched Balloon Boy. This map has also changed a little bit. The window in our office is now broken, and moving out of bounds we can see 2 trees and some rain effects just outside that window. Also present are these rectangular objects with a static texture applied to them. On Night 5, Balloon Boy can enter your office through the vents and break your cameras, resulting in them showing only static. These objects are simply warped on top of those screens the moment this occurs. We can also take a look at these animatronics up close, and just like the others, their appearance is super unsettling. They're all burnt up, and although the lights are on now, their eyes and teeth normally glow in the dark. Moving the camera over to the living room, we'll find Balloon Boy and Fredbear. Unlike the other animatronics who walk through the house, these guys will just teleport between locations, making it a lot harder to predict where they will attack you from. Taking a look at Night 6, we'll find that the original cast has returned once again. But if we take a look out of bounds, we can find Spring Bonnie and Fredbear just outside. As the night progresses, these two will begin appearing in the map as well. But for now, they're stored out here until they are called upon. Also out of bounds, we can find Balloon Boy, who is placed outside the map on the right side of our office. Similar to the other burnt animatronics, Balloon Boy will remain here until he is eventually placed inside the map. Something else I found while exploring this map was this set of eyes. There are 2 eyeballs just floating several feet apart from each other, similar to the pair of eyes I found on the title screen. However, that's it for the gameplay side of things, so now I want to take a look at some of those cutscenes. All these cutscenes are from the perspective of the player, William Afton. And depending on which Springlock suit was chosen at the beginning of the game, the player will view different cutscenes and ultimately reach different endings. In the first cutscene, William exits the storage closet, where we initially choose our suit, and talks to this child who is in front of the stage. He basically tells us to go away, so we turn around and head back toward the storage closet. From another perspective, we can see we are simply a floating Freddy mask as we interact with the child. And honestly, this cutscene is hilarious to watch from this angle. Now, if we choose the spring Bonnie suit, during this cutscene, William will actually convince the child to enter the storage closet. And from there, we have to decide his fate. Unfortunately, I couldn't view this cutscene from a different angle, but if you choose the option to kill him, he simply rotates to the side and the cutscene ends. When saying no to killing him, you open the door and then look the other way. What's interesting is that we can actually access this map before choosing a suit at the start. And in doing so, a player controller is loaded in on this map. So we can freely walk around this lobby as long as we want, because the scene never actually plays out. Next, we have another cutscene taking place inside the pizzeria. And in this one, we can see 3 kids in animatronic masks standing in front of the stage. They try to run away, and if you catch one of them, you must decide whether or not to kill him. If you say yes, then you'll ultimately reach the true ending. However, if you choose a Spring Bonnie suit at the start and kill the first kid, then letting this child go will actually result in the Bite of 83 bad ending. In this scene, William enters the lobby to find 4 kids in these animatronic masks, lifting the crying child up into Fredbear's mouth, before ultimately being bitten. It's actually pretty funny watching this from a different angle though, as we can see the crying child being lifted up and then just quickly flying into Fredbear's mouth. Also, if we take a peek underneath this map, we can find multiple sets of eyeballs just kind of floating down here. There's also a Spring Bonnie suit that appears to be laying on its side. Now, to my knowledge, there are 3 endings that the player can encounter during normal gameplay. And the other bad ending shows William waking up in his bed, insinuating everything that has happened was only a dream. If we fly out of bounds, we'll see that this cutscene actually takes place in the same map as the game itself. And just outside the hallway in her office, we can find Burnt Freddy and Foxy standing on the small piece of flooring that extends beyond the house's walls. I'm not sure why they're here, as they don't actually appear in this cutscene to my knowledge. However, in the true ending, there is a lot more going on. This ending shows William hiding from Shadow Freddy, as he interacts with the various animatronics inside of an old Freddy Fazbear's pizzeria. William attacks the various animatronics from behind and teleports throughout this location each time. Eventually, he ends up in this back room where the brother corners him. William puts on the Springlock suit and it immediately goes off, killing him inside. The puppet floats away and the credits roll. At the very end, we see a teaser for Final Nights 3, where we can see what I believe is Reaper Spring Bonnie, who appears in the next game. So going back in time to the beginning of this cutscene, we can see how it actually works. First of all, taking a look around this map, we can find a few interesting things hidden out of bounds. Up on the roof, there is a Shadow Spring Bonnie just standing in the rain, and directly next to him, we can see the Reaper animatronic from the end credits scene. It's just violently shaking around, and next to it, we can find the number 3 that is placed above them in the final shot. Now, going inside, I want to see what happens when we attack the animatronics from behind. As you may have guessed, the moment we attack these animatronics and the screen dips to black, we're actually being quickly moved across the map to another room. At the end of this cutscene, we are stuck in this back room, and in order to protect ourselves, we equip the Spring Bonnie suit. During this particular scene, however, we can find Shadow Freddy just outside this room in the corner. And for some reason, his head is on backwards, and he will remain here outside the map until the cutscene has finished. Directly beneath Shadow Freddy, the Springlock suit that was in the corner of this room is just kind of chilling beneath his map. The moment the player puts on the suit, the one in the corner is teleported down here out of view for the remainder of the scene. So I managed to come across each of these endings during my playthrough of the game. But within the game files, I was able to locate another ending that I'd never actually seen before. In this ending, we can see William being arrested by a police officer. This takes place in the same pizzeria area as before, right next to the stage where Fredbear and Spring Bonnie are performing. The policeman also tells William that the person who called for his arrest was his own son, Michael Afton. What's funny is that we're not wearing an animatronic suit during this cutscene, meaning we can't actually see William. So it appears as though this policeman is arresting an invisible criminal. Also, if you know how to actually trigger this ending in the game, let me know in the comments below. So let's talk about some hidden bonus content. So after digging through some of the game files, I found that there are a surprising amount of maps hidden within them. But before we take a look at these, I want to take a quick peek at the museum. So the museum is made available after completing the 5th night, and it contains all the animatronics we encounter in this game. We can take a look at all of them in here with the lights on, including this small robotic dog that is underneath this table. Down below, we can find bits and pieces of various animatronics present on this map. First, we can see a disconnected piece of Chica's model swaying back and forth as she runs in place. Over by the entrance, we can find the spring bunny head that William had worn throughout the game, as well as Fredbear's body. His head is on display within the museum, but his body has been separated and moved just beneath the map. There's also this strange floating X. I'm not sure if this is used somewhere within the museum, as I didn't come across it during my playthrough of the game, but it's floating here just underneath the floor. Once again, there is this sideways spring bunny just kind of hanging out down here, but that's everything I could find hidden within the museum. So now let's talk about that bonus content. Something else that I come across was this map simply called Starter Map. As some of you may know, this is a default map that contains a bunch of assets that can be used within your Unreal Engine projects. There are a handful of textures, models, and particle effects all lined up neatly in the center of the map. There's also a map called Showcase, which is basically just a jungle with tons of trees. Lots of asset packs for Unreal Engine and Unity typically ship with an example map showing all the assets in use, ready to be explored in Engine. And that's what this is. These aren't the only maps I found that are used for storing assets though, because there is also a map called Nature Effects Map. This map actually belongs to an asset pack called VFX Weather Pack, and it contains various weather effects including the rain and lightning we see throughout the game. Finally, there's this map with the burnt animatronics posed in front of the house from the title screen. There's rain and lightning, as well as some dense fog placed throughout the scene. Not to mention a glowing number 2 above these animatronics. This map is named Banner in the game files, and was likely used for promotional purposes for advertising the game, like for taking a screenshot for a banner, or getting a video clip. But with that brings us to the end of our look behind the scenes of Final Nights 2. I'm planning on covering the rest of the Final Nights games very soon, so make sure to subscribe so you'll be notified the moment they release. Thanks for watching everyone, and cheers!